At the outset, before I start, I would really like to thank the entire organizing committee of Day Diet, and especially Cheryl ma'am, to give me this opportunity. It's a great honor to be on this platform. I'm going to talk about the most challenging topic of ketogenic diet in diabetes. And before I go ahead, we just heard from our previous speakers, that is Shilpa ma'am, my own mentor, about the diabetes prevalence and how it can be beautifully reversed by the right kind of lifestyle management. So I'm going to skip over those slides. And we have seen just like looking into the Indian scenario, the Indian phenotypes, talking about, we might look at the thin from the outside, but we have increased levels of adiposity, that is the abdominal fat, leading to high visceral fat and insulin resistance, which also leads to an increased amount of obesity, and obesity ultimately leading to insulin resistance, causing a whole lot of metabolic problems and diabetes. So we might look thin, but we are metabolically obese. And there's a strong link always been shown that how obesity, a loss, or in loss in weight, can help in the management and bringing down the HbA1c levels and reversing diabetes. So as lifestyle practitioners and as like diabetes educators, I would always say that the approach in management, as said by Shilpam also, should always be dual. So there are n number of studies showing that the diabetes prevention program, the Look Ahead trial, which is one of the longest studies, showing that how weight loss has helped in the diabetes remission using meal replacers. So if we say that weight loss works the best, it's always a debatable topic that which diet works the best for weight loss. So here is a comparison by the American Diabetes Association, where a lot of meta-analysis were done and review articles. You can see the comparison that how from the age old, the low-fat diets, very low-fat diets, the Mediterranean diets, and the now trending low-carb and very low-carb ketogenic diets. So if you can see the arm that I have highlighted, how low carb and very low carb diets have helped in an A1C reduction, as well as weight loss, as well as an overall blood pressure reduction. And if you can strikingly see that there is no risk, CVD risk involved with it. Coming back to the Indian scenario, this is none another a study by Dr. Shashank Joshi and team, a recent study, the START study, which shows the comparison of regions, that how in the Indian population we majorly eat 60% of our total calories coming in from carbs, only 60 to 65%. And sadly, when you take up a recall from the patients at the clinics, you would see that almost not even here, if it is signified that protein intake is coming in 14% of the total calories, but if we take the recalls, you would see hardly 5 to 10% of the total calories coming in from protein. So which involves more of the calories coming in from carbs. So we Indians are heavy carb eaters, right? And we just saw that high carbohydrates diets are going to lead to high blood sugar levels, high insulin levels, ultimately leading to fat storage, insulin resistance, and metabolic syndrome and diabetes. So before I start my topic, the ketogenic diets, we would just see a study that how weight loss with a low carbohydrate, it was a comparison, a 2-year randomized controlled trial with around 322 moderately obese subjects, wherein few population were diabetics, few having cardiometabolic diseases, but all of them had at least a BMI of 27. So the low carbohydrate group was given less than like around 20 grams of carbs per day. And later on, they were given a maintenance by the end of it period, 120 grams of carbs. The Mediterranean diets were less than 35% of the total calorie coming from fats, and the low fat diets according to the AHA diet. If you see the results here, look very carefully. The purple arm is of the low carbohydrate diet, and how low carbohydrate diets have seen showed the maximum amount of weight reduction. Also, the Mediterranean Mediterranean arm shows a significant reduction in weight loss, but the maximum amount of HbA1c reduction for the remission, you can say, was through the low carbohydrate diets. Here, for comparison, if we look at the lipid profiles also, the HDL cholesterol got better with the low carb diets, LDL cholesterol showed a reduction, and the overall ratio of total cholesterol versus HDL also showed good changes in a low carb diet. Again, looking into the short diabetic groups, if you can see in the graph over here, the diabetic arm, that how the fasting glucose showed a reduction in the diabetic group of people, whereas in the low fat groups, that is the red arm, there was actually an increase of fasting glucose by the end of the 2-year trial. The fasting insulin shows an improvement. So overall, low carb diet was definitely beneficial, right? So coming to our topic for the day, that actually what is a ketogenic diet? A ketogenic diet, to come in short, is a low carbohydrate and a high fat diet, which was initially developed in the 1920s to treat epilepsy, where you keep the carbohydrates less than 50 grams per day, and you give adequate amount of proteins. Mainly fats are used as a source of energy. These extra fats that we give are broken down into the liver to produce ketones that are used as a source of energy. What are the additional benefits of a ketogenic diet? They help in the reduction of appetite due to higher satiety. Why? Because you're eating good amount of fats and protein, so there is also an appetite control. The ghrelin levels going down and the leptin levels going up. You see a reduced level of lipogenesis. As we know that insulin is a fat storing hormone. So you see that if carbohydrates are not given, like carbohydrates are reduced, the insulin levels produced in the body are less. If you can see here from a simple graph that I've shown, that how low levels of insulin secretion and glucose secretion is there with fats. So there is reduced amount of lipogenesis, whereas increased amount of lipolysis, which helps in using as a source of energy again. And like we just saw in the study, that better metabolic control studies have proven to improve the HbA1c levels, the lipid profile, as well as insulin sensitivity with ketogenic diet. So here is a simple, going back to the biochemistry, here's a simple way of understanding that how fats are used or ketones as used as a fuel. The ketogenic state also resembles like a starvation state of the body. So for the first 1 or 2 days, when you're devoiding the body of carbohydrates, the body uses the all amount of glycogen in the body, and ultimately it enters a state of starvation where fatty acids are used to create the ketones, and ultimately giving us energy. So what are the types? There are mainly three types of ketones: the acetoacetate, beta-hydroxybutyrate, and acetone. How do you test that your body is in ketosis? You use the ketone urine strips, the breath test, or the blood test. The urine strips and the breath tests are more economical as compared to the blood test. So we at our practice, we usually ask the patients to use the urine strips. And the patient might be, these are the levels showing that how to show how much the body is in ketosis. So we always recommend our patients to stay under low to moderate level of ketones, like that is low to moderate ketosis level. So this is again a simple pie chart showing that how I it was exhibited in the START study, that how Indian population and overall also globally carbs, how switching over from carbohydrates as a 60% source of energy, you're switching over to fats as a fuel. And we have always heard of this, that there are essential fatty acids required for the body, or maybe essential amino acids. But now we are seeing in the newer science that there is nothing as essential glucose. There are still no guidelines, which were earlier used to be that 100 grams of glucose is such required. And now fats are coming up as the new, you can say the new, maybe the primary source. Looking at the cones also, because we've always heard a lot of myths, and people ask about that what are the risks and cons associated with ketogenic diets. So there are searches showing that kidney stones are there in the children, but clinical trials in adults has still no proven benefits of showing that people on ketogenic diet develop kidney stones. There are temporary increased levels of LDL and apolipoprotein. Halitosis, that is a bad breath, is quite temporary. That is because of the ketones again. And the mild headaches, which your patients might complain if you're putting them on keto, is actually because of not giving them the right amount of minerals. So they are lacking maybe the right amount of sodium. So you actually need to counsel them on that basis, which is also temporary. Gallbladder issues, only gallbladder stones is only seen in patients who have prior issues, but not the ones who are practicing ketogenic diets. Then familiar hyperchylomicronemia is one such condition, but very rarely found globally, 1 or 2 in a million, who should not practice ketogenic diets because they lack the enzyme genetically. So, and foods items may comparatively be little expensive, but as we practice, we always have alternatives for all our patients. So I'm just going to show in that in a case later. So how do you plan a ketogenic diet for a diabetic or a metabolically obese individual? It's quite different from planning for an epileptic patient. It's not using any formulas, but you have a practical approach. So you always look into the current weight of the patient. If a person, say for example, is morbidly obese, so having a higher BMI, you will plan a hypocaloric ketogenic diet for the patient. If the patient is resembling a lean fat Indian scenario, so for example, the patient is the ideal BMI, but has higher amount of body fat, which also, like we saw in the studies by the previous speakers, leads to increased amount of visceral fat, diabetes, and also we would plan for them an isocaloric ketogenic diet. So we look into the current weight of the patient and how we plan for a weight loss the same way we plan a calorie deficit. You look into the activity level and promote a moderate activity of to the patient, that is around say 30 to 40 minutes of cardio activity for like 4 times a week. You keep a close monitoring on the blood glucose levels. So we always ask the patient for food photographs. We ask them to send their sugar at least alternate days to us, post-branded, or maybe whenever they are feeling low. And we keep a close check on them. Also, we ask the patients to do their ketone levels after 3 days of initiating the diet, because by then on 2 or 3 days, your bodies actually start using fats as a source of energy. So goals, I would say there's no fixed protocol, because for all, carbohydrate tolerance is different from person to person, but still we recommend the total energy coming in from carbohydrates to be as less as like 5 to 10% of the total calories. You always give healthy fats. So there are people who are practicing ketogenic diets, they're using fried foods, butters, trans fats. So we really you should always promote a ketogenic diet using less frying, less processed foods, processed meats. Carbohydrates should mainly come in from the greens. And how we practice is that if you want more adherence and more compliance of the patients, you should try a cyclical pattern of a ketogenic diet for patients. So not keeping them for more than 2 to 3 weeks, weaning them off, and maybe after say 1 or 2 weeks, you again give a cyclical pattern of a ketogenic diet. So these are the food groups. What do we usually ask them to eat and not to eat is there. So food groups that are avoided in a ketogenic diet are mainly all your grains, your high carb foods. So coming in from the wheat, rice, breads, all grains, and you ask them to use almond flour or the seed flours, a little bit of soybean flour as it's low on carb. Then all fruits are avoided. You can promote berries little bit of course in a limited quantity, and Indian berries we promote like jamuns or dried berries which are not sugar coated. Starchy vegetables are totally avoided, including potatoes, carrots, roots, tubers, and greens are promoted more as they are again low carb. All forms of sugar, jaggery, honey, of course, is avoided. And stevia, we do advise who are really craving for sugars and to make some kind of desserts and all. Pulses and legumes are also high in carbs, so they kick you out of ketosis if you're increasing on the quantity. So we usually avoid them in keto, and we do allow them little bit of sprouts. No frying again, no red meats, no processed meats, and we always promote healthy fats, like I mentioned, cheese, cottage cheese, nuts, seeds, olive oils, ghees, and seeds. So this is how a typical keto plan look like. So how we plan it at our clinic. So breakfast, for example, if a patient is vegetarian, we'll give them sprouts or an almond milk smoothie. Again, if almond milk is a question of affordability, you give sprouts as an option. If a patient is vegetarian, you can give any kind of egg preparation, allowing them more of whites, little bit of yolks for the good fats. Lunch can be an almond flour or a mix of almond, flaxseed, and soybean flour, dosa, chapatis. It is patient centered, how much of the quantity you're specifying. Then evening can be some nuts, seeds, along with some kind of liquid. So you do have to give a lot of liquid for the fats to be utilized for the energy breakdown. So you give at least 3 to 4 liters of liquid. So you ask them to hydrate in between by using some chia seeds, water, some green teas, a lot of overall liquid intake. Dinners can be soup with any kind of protein like paneer with good amount of fat. You can ask the patients to make homemade paneer, eggs, chicken, fish, bedtime again if they're hungry. So these are all pictures from all our patients. So these are all real photographs and not taken from the internet. You can see one very nice patient made an almond flour bun over here. So they make almond flour bread, buns, so many recipes. I had put in a lot of studies showing the benefits of ketogenic diet, but I removed one by one with a lack of time. But just two more to mention that how now the studies are showing that how ketogenic diets have been booming. If you can see here, this is one of the recent studies in 2015 that the beta hydroxybutyrate helps as an anti-inflammatory condition. So I had just pulled up this article. This is also one more article with the COVID on board. We are all going virtual. So you can see how this is an online intervention comparing a very low carbohydrate ketogenic diet versus using the plate method with individuals having type 2 diabetes. It was a closed study with only 25 patients. And we can see that in the intervention group, that is the ketogenic group, how the A1C reduction has been so nice. So coming to one case, I would like to specify like our case at the clinic. This is a patient having long-standing diabetes for 18 years with fatty liver, and you can see so many multiple amount of drugs. The patient's BMI was 37.4, and you can see the HbA1c was 9.3. So this is how we progressed on the case nutritionally. So the diet that was given in the first month, we will concentrate on the macros over here. If you can see that we practice a isocaloric low carbohydrate diet. So you're actually bringing the patient or getting the patient used to reducing the amount of carbohydrates they're actually consuming. So an isocaloric low carbohydrate diet, you bring down the carbs from 55% to next month 45% of the total carbohydrate. You give them a week of a meal replacement where you ask the patient to go really like hypocaloric. That is for a short duration, 1000 calorie, where you're giving only 30% of total energy coming from carbs, good amount of proteins and fats. In the third month, we went to a hypocaloric, low carbohydrate diet. So again, now the patient has lost enough of weight and is used to taking lower calories. So from 1600, you're planning a 1200 to 1400 calorie for the patient, giving 45% of the total calories coming in from carbs, 20%, 30% from proteins and fats. Fourth month, we practice the ketogenic diet for 2 to 3 weeks and then wean the patient off. And fifth month, we leave the patient on a high protein maintenance diet. And if you can see that we brought the patient from 55% to at the end of it, maintenance, practicing a low carbohydrate diet as a lifestyle. And the patient had started on insulin and multiple drugs, but stopped on no medications. This was the medical management.
Hetty, you just have a minute.
Line by line is controlled by none other than I work with my mentor, Dr. Rucha Mehta. So you can see the medical management, how we closely work as a team, that in the week 1 and by the week 20th, there are no medicines, no insulin. The patient was only left on a cholesterol medication. This was the weight change from 126 kgs to 99 kgs. The blood reports, again, you see the A1C reduction from 9.3 to 6.1. And you see all the blood parameters, all metabolic parameters, the fasting glucose getting better, the postprandial blood sugars getting better, the cholesterol, the lipid profile, uric acid even going down, and liver enzymes. So the take-home message would be that an intensive lifestyle intervention, as we have seen, helps in partial remission of type 2 diabetes, and how low carbohydrate and very low carbohydrate diets have been trending now and giving the best of results. We always teach our patients, and you should teach a macronutrient approach. So how to play with your carbohydrates, fats, and proteins and put them into the lifestyle for a longer run. You identify the BMI of the patient, always do a patient-centered goal and target. Like I said, that a patient who might be on a rapid, say a random blood sugar of 250 on a regular basis, and suddenly you practice a low carb diet, might go down to even say like a 140 sugar might feel low as compared to the person who has a random sugar of 140 and feeling a hypoglycemia at 60. So everything should be patient-centered. You practice a 10% weight loss, which shows guaranteed, progression of most obesity-related complications. You aim for a sustainable weight loss and definitely a weight maintenance. So it's always 60 to 70% of lifestyle, that is your diet, 20% of your exercise, and 10% of your mindset. And how you, as rightly said, that as diabetes educators, practitioners, how you take care of your patients. This is the before and after of our patient, the case I just presented. And last but not the least, inspired by none other than Dr. V. Mohan, in one of his books I just took out, one of the lines that he introduced the term called as clinical inertia. So clinical inertia is classically defined as a failure of the healthcare providers to initiate or intensify therapy when indicated. If we, at the stage of normal glucose tolerance, that is, we have a lot of pre-diabetic, we have pre-diabetes, obesity, impaired glucose tolerance in our patients. So at the right stage, at an early, say, pre-diabetic condition, if the primordial interventions are taken care of, the primordial prevention means reduction in the risk factors such as obesity by emphasizing on healthy eating, increasing physical activities is introduced to reduce, it will reduce the risk of obesity and helps in tremendous risk of prevalence of type 2 diabetes. So, but however, if we fail as practitioners to initiate, we are failing in the clinical inertia. This is where all the magic happens. Thank you so much once again. It's a great honor.